Good morning. Welcome to the forecast discussion for October 23rd, 2012. It is currently 9 a.m. and we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to separate the facts from the fiction and tell you exactly what is going on with Sandy and what could potentially happen by the end of this upcoming weekend. This is going to be rather interesting to break down. So let's get to it. First of all, we have increasing clouds throughout the northern mid-Atlantic as a disturbance approaches from the west, with a few scattered showers already approaching central Pennsylvania. Our temperatures range from the lower to mid-40s over the northern interior, of course Messina is around 39, to the upper 40s to lower 50s along the coast. We have an increase in humidity into the lower to mid-40s as moisture increases throughout the region. And as this disturbance approaches, you can see we have scattered showers moving towards the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area. These showers will move through this afternoon. This isn't a heavy rain threat at all. It's going to be nuisance showers that will move through, especially during the afternoon and evening hours. So rush hour might be a little bit wet, but this is not a washout in any way, shape, or form. Just a pesky disturbance that is moving through before we get back to the very comfortable weather conditions that set in for the rest of this upcoming week. So, our disturbance moves through. Here it is. It's going to exit. High pressure here takes control, and we are in control under high pressure through the rest of the week. With high pressure in control, look for our temperatures to rebound, well, this afternoon into the mid to upper 60s, lower 70s possibly by this afternoon over southern New Jersey. By tomorrow, much warmer. Temperatures ranging from the upper 60s to mid 70s throughout the entire northern mid-Atlantic, and then upper 60s for the most part through the rest of the week into Saturday. So really this is going to be a nice break in very comfortable weather conditions after we deal with a few scattered showers this afternoon and evening. Of course, all eyes are on the tropics. Why? Because we have Tropical Storm Sandy. Now, Tropical Storm Sandy, which is to the south of Jamaica, which is right here, is starting to rapidly develop. This is a large tropical storm. You can see how expansive it is, and I'll show you in just a moment with the water vapor that is taking up much of the central and eastern Caribbean. You can see a very nice outflow pattern here that's starting to develop. We have inflow pattern here that's also becoming well established. This is starting to look like a very healthy tropical storm and likely to become a hurricane in the near future. Currently, winds are increased to 45 miles per hour. It's moving to the north-northeast at 3 miles per hour. Now, what I'm expecting from Sandy as it's moving north, it should move right over the central portion of Jamaica by about, let's say, Thursday afternoon. Okay, then by Thursday evening, it'll slam into the southern portions of Cuba, and then once it moves into Cuba, well, then it gets very interesting exactly what is going to happen with Sandy as it interacts with a trough that is moving into the west coast. Now, let me break this down via the water vapor satellite picture. There's a couple of parts here that really aren't being discussed in the media that I think you need to be aware of. First of all, this is Tropical Depression 19. Why is this important? Well, this will eventually become a weak tropical storm and then become entrained and infused in this trough here, and also interact with this upper level low here. These two features and this will combine to produce a very powerful negative NAO pattern. Why is that important? Because it slows down the entire pattern. Key point here, if this is a little bit further east in development, then this whole solution is further east out into the Atlantic. If it's a little bit further west, then we have even more problems to consider than just a very strong storm. It could be one that lasts for a very long time in terms of storms. So there's a lot of volatility in the forecast impact here. We have to watch out exactly what happens with this tropical depression, how it interacts with this trough, and how it blocks up the entire pattern. Key point number 2. What's with this disturbance here? This disturbance over eastern Cuba could lead to a weaker tropical storm or hurricane than what's currently forecasted on the model guidance. And quite frankly, it's not being handled by the model guidance very well. This disturbance could shear portions of our tropical storm. And if that happens with Sandy, well, then the solution seen in the model guidance is nowhere near as impressive. Also, exactly how Sandy interacts with portions of Cuba could determine just how strong it is over the Bahamas and therefore over the southeastern coastal waters. If it's a much weaker tropical system than what's being currently forecasted by several model guidance, then the whole solution changes and we're dealing with a far less dynamic storm. Finally, here is our disturbance that is going to cause all the ruckus by this upcoming weekend. As you can see, it's over the Pacific and not exactly in the best place for sampling of its strength and speed. If the speed or strength of this disturbance is off by just a little bit, by just 6 hours, then you're talking about a complete miss over the eastern United States. That's just 6 hours. Just want to bring a point here that the disturbance that's moving through for today has been misforecast from yesterday by 6 hours. Kind of making a point here. 24 hours out, we still can have some minor errors that in this type of setup would be a drastically different forecast. So my point here is that there's a lot of volatility in this forecast, a lot of uncertainty. And it's important not to jump the gun just yet. It's a dangerous situation potentially if everything works out just right. So let's take a look at the model guidance. This is the European model guidance from the Penn State UWall website. And I'm using the European model guidance to kind of show the worst case scenario here of what could happen. And also the European model guidance has been doing very well over the past couple of weeks. So here we are last night. You can see one disturbance here. Here's our upper level low. At this point, we still don't have a well-developed tropical system over the Atlantic. And tropical depression, what was it, 18 at the time, it just formed into Sandy. By this evening, notice our trough over the northern Atlantic starts to become enhanced. Why? Because we're starting to add tropical energy into this trough. We have a ridge over the eastern United States, so our disturbance moves through with a few scattered showers, and then high pressure here starts taking control. Here's our disturbance diving into the west coast. By the time we move into Wednesday, here comes Sandy starting to move across portions of Cuba. We'll have to see exactly what happens with Sandy here. Here's our disturbance entering the west coast, and here's our high latitude blocking developing over the northern Atlantic. Notice the ridge building over Greenland. Notice our 50-50 low around the Canadian Maritimes. We have all the setups here for what could be a very interesting storm. Moving into Thursday, Sandy is now over the portions of the Bahamas, potentially re-intensifying. We'll see exactly how well Sandy fares moving over portions of Cuba, a very mountainous portion. It could very well just be torn apart. That is a very real possibility. Or it could maintain some strength as a tropical storm and start to move over the Bahamas over very warm waters. And as you can see, not much in the way of shear. So it could potentially intensify very, very rapidly. Meanwhile, here's our upper level low and strong negative NAO pattern, blocking up our entire weather pattern and slowing everything down to a crawl. As we move into Friday, high pressure is still in control. We are enjoying fabulous weather with clear skies and temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Very warm for this time of year. Meanwhile, here comes Sandy moving up in just to the north of the Bahamas. And here's our disturbance moving into the northern, or should I say, upper Mississippi River Valley. Now, here is where it is key. If this trough is off by just 6 hours, then this negatively tilted beginning of a phase does not happen. This exits out into the Atlantic and gets kicked out rather than phased in. Think of this like a soccer ball. Depending on the speed in which this trough starts to interact with this tropical system, it could either kick it out or it could pull it in. Kind of like when you're kicking a soccer ball. If you want to kind of pull it in and protect the ball, you kind of have the ball more on the heel of your foot. Whereas if you want to kick it, well, you just kick it straight, So basically the timing of this trough and this tropical system is going to be incredibly key. Now, in this case, in this model guidance, you can see that the trough and our tropical system interact in phase. What you end up with is a dynamic temperature contrast from the Great Lakes to the eastern seaboard with temperature gradient roughly around 20, maybe 25 degrees. Plenty of moisture. We got very heavy rainfall over the over the East Coast from basically New York City down to Washington with very heavy rain, very strong winds on Sunday night. And as we move into Monday, well, here comes our complete phase. This would be a very powerful storm with very strong winds, very heavy rainfall, and coastal flooding. It's just a very powerful storm. And also notice the temperature gradient here as our temperatures fall below freezing over portions of eastern and central Pennsylvania and northwestern New York. Well, should I say western New York? Well, all that moisture and cold air, especially in higher elevations, would actually lead to very heavy snowfall. So this storm may have it all. But again, it all depends on the timing of this trough right here on Saturday night. If this is a little bit slower or a little bit faster, this does not evolve into the storm that we're seeing on the model guidance now. In fact, the GFS model guidance sets up the trough in such a way that the timing is just right to kick this out into the Atlantic rather than phasing it into one storm. So again, there's a lot of uncertainty here. There's a lot of volatility in the forecast, and a lot of it has to do with timing of a trough that is 5 days away. So yes, we have to be wary of this storm. We have to keep an eye on this storm, but let's not jump to conclusions just yet. But it could be a dangerous situation, and we're going to have to keep following it. And of course, I'll keep on sending the updates and let you know exactly what's happening. And when I think it's appropriate, I'll start sending out the emails as we start to get ready for this storm potentially. Well, that is the forecast discussion for today. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. You can follow the latest weather information at nynjpaweather.com and nynjpaweather on Twitter and Facebook. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.